You ever notice how some people can't stop watching the very person they claim to hate? They gather in groups, repeat the same insults, invent new stories, and convince themselves that if enough voices speak against one person, truth somehow changes. They don't attack because you're invisible. They attack because your presence keeps reminding them of something they don't have. People don't waste energy trying to destroy what's meaningless. They become obsessed with what they secretly fear will rise beyond their reach. The strange part is they think every insult weakens you. Every rumor is supposed to steal your confidence. Every rejection is meant to convince you that you were never chosen for anything greater. They celebrate too early because they mistake resistance for defeat. They don't realize pressure reveals what was already inside. Fire doesn't create gold. It exposes it. While they're busy trying to bury your name, something bigger is quietly lifting your purpose. Doors they tried to lock begin opening somewhere else. Strength appears where exhaustion once lived. Clarity replaces confusion. The attacks that were supposed to stop your journey end up proving that your path was never dependent on their approval. Now they're forced to watch what they tried to prevent. The person they laughed at keeps standing. The one they tried to isolate keeps growing. Every setback becomes another reason you refuse to quit. Every betrayal sharpens your vision. Every obstacle becomes evidence that not every battle is meant to destroy you. Some battles exist to reveal who you become when the world decides you're supposed to disappear. The hardest thing for your critics isn't seeing you survive. It's realizing they couldn't stop what was meant for you. They believed they were writing your ending, but all they managed to do was expose their own fear while your story kept moving without asking for their permission. Have you ever noticed that the loudest critics are rarely strangers? They're usually the people who expected you to stay small. The ones who felt comfortable as long as you questioned yourself. The ones who smiled when you doubted your worth, but became strangely uncomfortable the moment you started believing in your own purpose. That's the thing about relentless attacks. They almost never begin because you've failed. They begin because something about your growth unsettles people who built their confidence on your limitations. People don't spend sleepless nights talking about someone who means nothing. They don't gather groups, repeat rumors, twist your words, and celebrate every setback unless your existence challenges something inside them. They may call it concern. They may disguise it as criticism. They may even convince themselves they're doing the right thing. But beneath all the excuses lies a simple truth. Insecurity always feels threatened by someone who refuses to stay where they were placed. The crowd has a strange habit. It rewards people who stay predictable. The moment you start changing, some of the very people who once applauded you begin treating you like a problem. Not because you've become worse, but because you've become harder to control. They preferred the version of you that constantly needed approval, the version that apologized for taking up space, the version that accepted disrespect just to avoid conflict. That person was easy to manage. Then you started walking differently. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because you stopped allowing other people to define your value. That's when the whispers grew louder. That's when every decision you made became a topic of discussion. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion about your life, your choices, your future, as if your confidence had somehow become their personal emergency. Here's the part they never understand. Every attack reveals more about the attacker than the target. People expose themselves through what they obsess over. Someone at peace doesn't spend every waking moment trying to destroy another person's reputation. Someone secure doesn't need a crowd to validate their hatred. They move forward with their own life. Obsession belongs to those who secretly fear being left behind. The funny thing is they believe they're slowing you down. They think every insult steals a piece of your confidence. They expect you to collapse under the weight of constant opposition. Instead, Every challenge teaches you something they accidentally forgot to learn. Patience, discipline, awareness, the ability to recognize genuine support from fake loyalty. They become the unexpected architects of a stronger version of you. The more they try to convince the world that you're unworthy, the more obvious it becomes that your presence has disrupted the comfort of people who depended on your silence. They aren't attacking because you have no purpose. They're attacking because deep down they suspect you do, and nothing frustrates insecure minds more than watching someone refuse to shrink just to make everyone else feel comfortable. Pressure has a way of exposing what comfort keeps hidden. Anyone can look confident when life is easy. Anyone can speak about courage when nothing is at risk. But the moment everything begins falling apart, the truth steps into the light. That's where real character is revealed. Not in applause, not in success, not in moments when the crowd is cheering your name, but in the silence where every reason to quit suddenly feels louder than every reason to keep going. The people who keep attacking you believe pressure is supposed to break you. They imagine every insult, every rejection, every obstacle as another crack in your foundation. They expect your confidence to disappear one disappointment at a time. They don't realize pressure doesn't create weakness. It reveals whether weakness was ever there in the first place. A storm cannot invent fear. It only exposes what was already living inside the heart. That's why the strongest people rarely look impressive at the beginning. They spend years carrying burdens no one notices. They survive betrayals that never become headlines. They fight battles nobody applauds because the world only celebrates victories after they're visible. The greatest transformations happen while everyone else assumes nothing important is taking place. Think about fire. It doesn't ask permission before testing what stands in front of it. Cheap material burns away. Strong material endures. The heat doesn't decide the quality. It simply reveals it. Life works the same way. Every trial removes another illusion. Every difficult season strips away another layer of fear, until all that's left is the person you were becoming all along. The crowd sees resistance and assumes you've been abandoned. They mistake hardship for failure because they measure success by comfort instead of growth. They believe that if opposition appears, your path must be wrong. They never stop to consider that the greatest callings often face the greatest resistance. Anything valuable attracts pressure because valuable things are worth testing. What's fascinating is how your enemies unknowingly participate in your transformation. Every attempt to discourage you forces you to develop stronger discipline. Every lie teaches you to value truth. Every betrayal teaches you discernment. Every closed door pushes you toward opportunities you would never have discovered if the first one had stayed open. They think they're writing the story of your defeat, while unknowingly adding chapters to your resilience. Pressure also has a remarkable habit of exposing people around you. Some disappear the moment life becomes inconvenient. Others suddenly reveal they were only loyal when your journey looked easy. Then there are the rare few who remain beside you when there is nothing to gain. Adversity becomes the filter that separates spectators from genuine supporters. Eventually, the same pressure they expected to crush you begins shaping your confidence. You stop fearing difficult seasons because every challenge reminds you of what you've already survived. The attacks lose their power. The obstacles lose their intimidation. The resistance that once looked like a wall becomes proof that you're walking a path strong enough to demand endurance. And every trial uncovers another layer of strength that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. Most people think obstacles are roadblocks. They see rejection, betrayal, criticism, and opposition as signs that they should turn around. That's exactly why so many people never reach the life they were capable of building. They mistake resistance for a warning when, many times, resistance is simply the weight room where strength is created. The pressure isn't there to end your journey. It's there to reveal whether you're willing to keep walking when the applause disappears. The people working against you believe every attack takes something from you. They imagine every rumor weakens your reputation. Every insult drains your confidence. Every setback steals another piece of your future. They celebrate every difficult moment because they're convinced your story is finally coming apart. They don't realize they're pouring fuel onto a fire instead of putting it out. Every obstacle forces you to become someone you never would have become inside comfort. If everyone had accepted you, you might never have learned independence. If every door had opened immediately, you might never have developed patience. If nobody had questioned your purpose, you might never have discovered how deeply you believed in it. Easy roads create comfortable people. Difficult roads create people who know exactly why they keep moving. Think about how many times life redirected you through disappointment. At first it felt unfair. Plans collapsed. Relationships ended. Opportunities disappeared. You wondered why everything seemed to be working against you. Looking back, many of those painful moments became the exact reason you found a better direction. The doors that stayed closed protected you from places that would have trapped your potential. The people who walked away made room for those who genuinely belonged in your future. Your critics unknowingly become part of your training. Every attempt to discourage you teaches emotional discipline. Every false accusation teaches you to stop depending on public opinion. Every betrayal sharpens your ability to recognize sincerity. Without realizing it, the very people trying to slow your progress become the reason your mindset grows stronger than it ever could have in comfortable circumstances. The funny thing about growth is that it rarely announces itself. While everyone else is watching your setbacks, they're missing the invisible changes taking place inside you. They don't see the patience replacing frustration. They don't notice confidence quietly replacing insecurity. They don't recognize that every difficult season is removing another habit that once kept you trapped. Then one day they become confused. They expected exhaustion, but they find endurance. They expected fear, but they find calm. They expected another emotional reaction, but they find someone who has learned to conserve energy for purpose instead of conflict. That's when they realize the attacks didn't stop your rise, they accelerated it. The greatest irony is that many of the people trying hardest to stand in your way end up proving your resilience to everyone watching. They become living evidence that opposition couldn't silence your determination. Every challenge they placed before you became another step upward. Every attempt to discourage you became another reason to grow. Every obstacle became another reminder that some journeys aren't strengthened by comfort, but by the relentless resistance that forces ordinary people to discover extraordinary resolve. The world is full of noise. Opinions arrive from every direction. Some people tell you you're moving too slowly. Others accuse you of dreaming too big. Some criticize your decisions before you've even had the chance to make them. If you stopped to answer every voice demanding your attention, you would spend your entire life fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. That's exactly how distraction works. It doesn't always come dressed as failure. Sometimes it comes disguised as endless arguments with people who already decided they would never understand you. The crowd loves to believe that volume equals truth. The louder they speak, the more they assume everyone should listen. They gather around rumors because certainty is easier than honesty. They repeat accusations because thinking for themselves requires effort. Before long, people who know nothing about your journey begin speaking as though they wrote every chapter of your life. They judge the scars without ever seeing the battles that caused them. Here's what they never expect. You stop responding, not because you have no answer, but because you've learned that not every accusation deserves your energy. Silence isn't surrender. It's discipline. It's refusing to donate your peace to people who feed on conflict. Every minute spent defending yourself against those committed to misunderstanding you is a minute stolen from the purpose you're supposed to be building. The strongest focus isn't found in perfect conditions. It's created by refusing to let chaos become your compass. While everyone else is busy reacting to every insult, every rumor, every hateful comment, you're quietly continuing your work. Brick after brick, decision after decision, day after day. That's how meaningful lives are built. Not through endless debates, but through consistent action while the critics remain trapped inside conversations that never produce anything. It's funny how quickly people become uncomfortable when they can no longer pull you into their drama. They throw another insult expecting anger. Nothing. They spread another rumor expecting panic. Nothing. They question your motives expecting an explanation. Still nothing. Eventually they begin arguing with the version of you that exists only inside their own imagination, because the real you has already walked far beyond the place where their opinions once mattered. Focus is dangerous because it cannot be manipulated easily. A distracted mind follows every voice. A focused mind follows a clear direction. That's why so many people lose years chasing approval instead of purpose. They become addicted to proving strangers wrong rather than proving themselves capable. The crowd keeps them busy while life quietly moves forward without waiting. The moment you stop measuring your value through public opinion, your vision becomes sharper. You begin recognizing that criticism often reveals the limits of the speaker rather than the limits of your future. You understand that purpose doesn't require unanimous support. It requires unwavering commitment. Every unnecessary argument you refuse to join becomes another hour invested in becoming stronger, wiser, and more prepared. Eventually, the noise fades in the background. The opinions that once echoed inside your mind lose their influence. The distractions lose their attraction. Your attention returns to what truly matters, and the people who tried to pull you off course are left watching from the same place they expected you to remain, while you continue walking with a clarity they never managed to take from you. There comes a moment that every doubter secretly fears, not the moment you fight back, not the moment you raise your voice, the moment they realize you kept moving without them. That's the part no one prepares for. People who spent years predicting your failure suddenly find themselves watching a story that refuses to follow the script they wrote. They expected your journey to end where their opinions began. Instead, your progress became impossible to ignore. The strange thing about critics is that they often believe they are the authors of someone else's destiny. They speak with certainty, as though repeating a lie often enough can make it permanent. They gather around your setbacks, celebrate temporary failures, and convince themselves that one difficult season defines your entire future. They mistake a chapter for the whole book because they have never learned the difference between a delay and a defeat. Then life begins changing in ways they never expected. The same person they dismissed starts walking with confidence. The same voice they laughed at begins carrying wisdom. The same individual they tried to isolate starts building genuine connections, while those who mocked them remain trapped in the same habits, repeating the same bitterness, waiting for another opportunity to criticize someone else's growth instead of confronting their own lack of it. Nothing frustrates insecure people more than seeing someone they underestimated continue to rise. They keep searching for the hidden trick, the secret advantage, the shortcut that must explain your progress, because accepting the truth would force them to admit that discipline outlasted mockery, consistency defeated gossip, and resilience survived everything they hoped would bring you down. The greatest irony is that they become witnesses to the very thing they tried to prevent. Every obstacle they placed in front of you became another lesson. Every insult became another reason to sharpen your focus. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Without intending to, they helped remove distractions, expose fake loyalty, and strengthen your resolve. They thought they were creating barriers, but they were actually constructing the staircase you would eventually climb. By the time they recognize what's happening, the distance between who you were and who you've become is too great to erase. They can talk about your past all they want, but your present keeps proving them wrong without saying a word. That's what real growth looks like. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg for recognition. It simply continues expanding until denial becomes impossible. People who once questioned your purpose suddenly act as though they always believed in you. Others stay silent because admitting they were wrong feels heavier than carrying their pride. A few continue attacking, not because they still expect you to fail, but because your success reminds them of every excuse they've been hiding behind. Your progress becomes a mirror they never wanted to look into. The final lesson isn't that everyone will eventually support you. Many never will. The real victory is realizing their approval was never required. They are forced to watch because life keeps moving whether they clap or complain. They become spectators to a journey they tried to stop, discovering too late that purpose cannot be buried by gossip. Persistence cannot be erased by hatred, and a determined spirit keeps rising long after the crowd has run out of stones to throw.